We're on. Got it. All right, if you please stand and say the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you everyone for coming. At the first, we'll have public comment. 3 minutes per person, comments only, no questions. Are there any questions from the gallery? Yes.
Melissa Bryan, Dayton, Washington. 2 meetings ago, there was actually a comment by Jenny mentioning something about Woody's and that it was not a positive report, but you never actually reported on it. So I would just like a report on Woody's, just like to know what the status is, maybe what's happened since the fire until now, if that's pertinent.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? None here. Thank you. Anyone from online on Zoom, any comments before the board? Hearing none, will proceed. Thank you.
Do you want me to address her, or do you want me to do it down under economic development?
Why don't you, that's where you
Because
normally
I'm
do.
happy to answer the question.
Okay, yeah, we can wait until she does that report towards the end of the meeting. All right, administrative items, approve the minutes, and there were some corrections to the minutes. Anything else?
I think I followed that step. There was a couple of them that went out right. That last one that was the final one.
Yes.
The one highlighted.
Highlights on it. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right,
So I would move that we approve the minutes as revised.
No, I second it.
okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, review monthly budget report and approve vouchers.
You got the monthly budget report sent out and the vouchers. On the income side, we did receive partial tax payment in October. So that's been placed on the report. And then we did get one reimbursement, our first reimbursement for the broadband project, 198,000. So that it didn't take too long. You know, I usually the other state agencies do it within about 10 days. This one was a little longer, but I think once they get in the groove, it won't be too bad. So, and then we did get the $90,000 broadband match from the county. I submitted an invoice to them for the fiber and followed the rules of the agreement because we have an agreement with them, and the auditor's office took care of it right away and got that done. So all the match has been received, 100%.
And that is for the initial.
That's for the first project, the
phase,
Dayton
not
Community
any of
Broadband
that other
Project.
Second stuff that. we're
No,
still-
we don't have to have match for the second one, luckily. So that's the last of the match we'll have to worry about.
Okay.
It's all done.
Thank you.
Let's see, any questions on the income side?
No.
All right, and on the expense side, we did have let's see, what was I going to describe? Office equipment, that was mostly the tablets, because we did buy better tablets. What was I, oh, we just have maintenance, we did have to do some maintenance on the roof at Blue Mountain Station. There had been, way I could talk about it under Blue Mountain Station, but there was a little bit there. Several different bills added up to that maintenance. I went through the voucher myself, because I was like, what in the world did we do? And it was a bunch of small stuff. So they're all listed on the voucher sheet for you to see. And then the broadband money going out, which we're going to submit another reimbursement tomorrow after the checks are written. We'll hold checks until we make sure we have the cash on hand to cover those. We mostly do anyway, but we can hold the checks until we do. I've just been keeping money in the temporary reserve, which is fabulous. I don't know if you guys have noticed the interest. We haven't had interest for years. And we had $1,000 interest this month.
Fantastic.
So I've been trying to keep the 400,000 in the temporary reserve just because it's earning the interest. So if I can, the longer I can keep it there, the better. That's it. So unless you have questions on this side, I'm happy to answer them.
The architecture and engineering for Anderson Perry, what was that for?
That's for the bike trail.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have spoken to them and said that this needs to get done faster. We just need to get it done and be done with it.
Any questions on the vouchers?
I do.
Okay,
Can I pass those down and the minutes are there too? So you both sign the vouchers and Johnny signs both sets of minutes. Oh, did you, when you guys approved the minutes, did you do both sets? I'm sorry, I wasn't listening very carefully.
no. But-
We did, the amendment was on the 26th, or was that's for the 26th?
Right, yes. And
So
there
we
was,
probably need to approve the 12 minutes.
October 12th.
sorry, I didn't catch that. I
No,
don't.
I'm sorry, the
The
amendment
amendment
was on the
12th,
12th.
the 26th was, as
As
written.
it, yes, right,
Right,
Correct.
yeah. So,
so do you want to make a motion on the?
So we did the 12th. I'll
Yes.
make a motion that we accept I didn't see anything on the 26th.
They were in there.
No, I
to be
mean,
changed.
any changes.
Right, no,
So I'll make a motion to approve those.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the October 26 minutes with no changes.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
Good catch.
All right, well, we will go ahead then and move on with the comp plan. Sorry, Jeannie,
Okay, sorry.
I took over. No, I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
I stepped on your.
No, that's all right. Comp plan kickoff.
Okay, so I would like to introduce you to Abby Russell and Sarah Seelock. And they are with Mall Foster Alonji. Is that correct? Did I say it correctly?
You said
Alonji?
it perfectly.
And they are going to lead us through we should be done by 5:45 by the public hearing time and discuss the scope of work and the budget. And they can talk with you about how you want to carry this forward. So go right ahead, ladies.
Thank you, Jenny. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you today and hopefully support the Port of Columbia as you update your comprehensive plan. I do have a presentation that Sarah and I are going to walk through. Can I go ahead and bring that up?
Yeah, hang on. I pushed the wrong button. I have to make sure you're, okay, you can share now.
Thank you, Jenny. And while we're bringing this up, we really want this to be an interactive discussion today. So we really, can you all see, what are you all seeing? Presentation?
We see the presentation, yes.
Wonderful, thank you. Can never tell with Zoom. Okay, we really hope that y'all will have some questions for us. We can have a discussion around some of the background that we're going to share, some dialogue around your aspirations for this process and for the comprehensive plan update. And your questions and input are greatly appreciated. So with that, I think we'll just do some quick introductions. I'll turn it over to Sarah if you'd like to introduce yourself, Sarah, and we'll talk a little bit about MFA.
Sure, great. So good evening, everybody. My name is Sarah Seelock. I'm a senior planner at Mall Foster. And I come to Mall Foster with experience leading a national nonprofit and prior to that, working in local economic development at the interface of the federal government and cities. So really a pleasure to be with you and I'm looking forward to the process. Abby?
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, and I'm Abby Russell. I am a senior communications specialist with Mall Foster Alonji. I've been with MFA for about 3.5 years. I primarily work with ports and public agencies, although I do work a little bit with private entities as well, helping them to communicate and work with their communities on projects and initiatives of all sizes. I have about 17 years of experience doing this, both as a consultant now and also as a government employee, including 5 years with the Port of Vancouver, USA. So down here in my stomping grounds of Southwest Washington, I worked for the Port of Vancouver as their communications manager. And prior to this work, I served in the United States Army, helping soldiers learn how to use their radios and installing them and repairing them. So just a shout out to all the veterans out there. Thank you for your service as we honor you this Veterans Day week. Just a little bit about Mall Foster Alonji. We are a multidisciplinary employee-owned company based in Vancouver, but we have offices all over the Northwest. We work with a lot of ports. This is just a sample of the ports that we've worked with and other public agencies over the last 10 years to develop a variety of plans, from strategic plans to comp plan updates to business plans. We've done a lot of different planning work that also pulls in other disciplines such as engineering and communications and environmental. And we worked with probably at least half of the ports here in Washington State. We've also are working with the Pacific Northwest Waterways Association currently, as well as the Washington Public Ports Association. So a couple of groups who represent our industry and do it really, really well. Anything to add there, Sarah?
Nope, maybe just one thing, and that is to say that we're currently actually working on a few strategic plans for the Pacific Northwest Waterways Association, which includes many, many ports as it's in its membership, and also with the Port of Skagit. So we're really excited that the Port of Columbia will be the next port with which we get to work on these processes.
Thank you. So as Jenny mentioned, we're just going to walk through the scope of this project a little bit and kind of just lay the groundwork so that we're all on the same page. And that's part of our process of kicking off a project, is just kind of getting everybody aligned and on the same page with how we're going to roll this out, how we're going to work together, et cetera. So the scope of this project is really sort of, these are the four big buckets, if you will. Making sure that we are sharing information on a two-way street with your community, getting out there, getting information in front of them about the comp plan, about your plans for the future of the port, which of course impacts the community in many ways. And encouraging their input. So making it a two-way street. Come talk to us. It doesn't have to be just that required public hearing, which tends to be sort of at the end of the process. It can be really at any point. And we're going to do that in some proactive ways. And we're going to also encourage folks to come to commission meetings to provide that input in real time. So communications is a big bucket. Commission workshops are another big bucket. So that's time with you, the commission, in a public meeting. Discussing various aspects of your properties and your assets, and getting information from you, getting input from you, and then going forward and gathering information to come back and bring that back to you so you can begin to look at the path forward. Community engagement. So we talked about communications, and community engagement is a little bit different. This is actually reaching into the community and finding groups that really have a stake in different ways in what the port does with its assets and how that translates to jobs and other economic benefit in the community. And so we'll be looking at doing some individual as well as perhaps some small group interviews with different stakeholders around the community. And we're going to be working with the port to develop that list of stakeholders. And then one of the sort of final pieces of this is the report itself. So developing the report, bringing all of the input and all of the data and all of the information that's been provided from various points, including the commission, together into a document that is well-structured and helps the port move forward. I'm going to just pause for a second and see if there are any questions. And Sarah, if you had anything you'd like to add.
No questions?
Not yet. Nope, no questions yet.
Okay.
Nothing to add.
Great, thank you. And just like overarching, we're going to provide guidance and bandwidth to help you update your comp plan. So that is really our job. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but it's our job to provide that bandwidth and help you do this in a really informed and transparent way. The point of this is to identify the information that you need to make the decisions you need to make for the port to set that policy. These decisions will be crystallized in that comp plan update. Does that make sense? Okay, I think I see some nods. Okay. Thank you. And just for what it's worth, as you've seen, there will be some in-person meetings. So we're really looking forward to that. I know it's still challenging to do the hybrid thing, but we're really looking forward to digging in and being there in person with you through this process. So I'm going to give just a little bit of background on comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements, or comp plan. And some of this may be really familiar. Some of it you may have questions. Hopefully you will jump in here and ask your questions. And if you need clarification, just let us know. But so the comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements, are more commonly known as a comp plan in today's lexicon. It is a legally required keystone document. It started in the early 1900s with the Port District Act of 1911. So this is an act and a law that predates all of our public meeting laws and, OPMA and all of that. And it was one of the first ways that the state would require ports, specifically because we have kind of a different job as ports, right? To communicate proactively and openly with their constituents about what they were planning to do with public assets. It's a kind of a funny scheme, because I think today we think of that as like it's a nefarious plan, but it really is just a plan. And so today we really call it a comp plan. It's pretty synonymous. The other term that's sort of outdated is harbor. In the early 1900s, as many folks who know their history know about Washington State particularly, there was a big movement to protect waterways for public use. And so, of course, there was a focus on harbors. And now today we have many, many ports around the state that are nowhere near water, which often surprises people. The comp plan is a general discussion. So it is not a detailed document that tells people exactly how much you're going to spend and where you're going to spend it and, who's going to be on the project. It is really a high-level document that provides context and an inventory of the assets and plans for what you are going to do with those assets. Your current comp plan does a really good job of explaining this. It basically says it's a guideline for the future, not a rigid document that spells out exactly what we're going to do. It's also a communication tool. As I mentioned, it's a way for the state to require transparency for people to be able to not only understand what is happening with the assets that they've invested their tax dollars in through the port, but also to have a chance to comment on those through a public hearing, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. Comp plans also are aligned with other key documents such as your budget and your strategic plan. And it used to be that the strategic plan and the comp plan were sort of integrated. And best practices over the years have separated those two documents, although you still will see many comp plans in the state that sort of combine them. So it can be a little confusing between what is a strategic plan and what is a comp plan and what is, think of it this way, the comp plan and the strategic plan and the budget should all work together to provide transparency, to guide the port, to direct the funds that are in your budget. What the difference that this may help a little bit. Comp plans are forever, right? Diamonds are forever. Comp plans are forever too. So it's as long as you have assets, you're going to have a comp plan and you're going to update it. Best practices to update it each year with your budget. Strategic plans have a shorter lifespan, 3 to 5 years roughly. They're typically updated consistently, but at some point they sort of expire. They sort of become not useful anymore. And so they need to be redone. But the comp plan is generally updated by resolution each year just to update the information for existing assets and for the work that's been done in those investments that you planned. Any questions so far?
No.
I don't have questions, but yeah, I'm learning things. Because I've been the one who's done our comp plan over the years and the strategic plan is part of our comp plan, as I'm sure you've seen.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with it at all. Over
And then
time,
previous commissioners did not want really long documents, which I think is part of it, yeah.
and I think
then-
yours is something like 30 pages maybe, or 20 something pages.
And you said readopt it every year, the comp plan?
No, it's usually, I guess you could say readopted, but it's usually updated annually by resolution, typically.
Okay, that's also news to me.
It
Thank
might
you.
be, yeah, you bet. It might be an easier way to do it. That's how we did it at Port of Vancouver. I know there are a number of other ports in the state who do it that way as well. And it's usually done with the budget really for the simple, I think for 2 reasons. One, because as we just discussed, it's typically going to align with your capital improvement plan, with your budget in general, but also conveniently, which is very rare, the public notice requirements for a comp plan are the same as the budget. So you can do them at the same time under the same umbrella.
So like when we had a budget hearing, like if we were gonna have, like today, we're having a budget hearing, we would also have update the comp plan.
you could have you can do the public notice at the same time, but the hearings likely should be separate.
But they could be done in the same meeting.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I would probably double check with your counsel just to be sure, but I don't see why that would be an issue.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
You're welcome.
We keep
No.
going.
Great questions. Very relevant. Okay, there we go. So as we were just talking about, great segue. Thank you, Jenny. There are public notice requirements, pretty specific to comp plans but they're the same as budgets. So they'd be pretty familiar. It does require a minimum of one public hearing. The next step is typically adoption by the commission, acting as a body of the whole to set policy for the port. And as you're aware, comp plans, in order to be compliant with RCW 53.20, they do have to go through SEPA non-project review. And that is just like broad brush what is required of a comp plan. Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Sarah. Oh, no, wait, I've got one more. Sorry, Sarah. One more. Contents. So what does a comp plan usually look like? So your comp plan, I'm actually looking at it on my other screen right now, is lovely. I appreciate the fact that you use graphics, not everybody does, to really illustrate it. And you do a great job of providing maps, aerials of your lands. What does it look like? What are these assets? Where are they located? What do they look like? What is there? So that's a really important piece of it. General statement of objectives. So what is this comp plan trying to achieve? And what is the port trying to achieve? And you do have your mission and your goals in here. Description and inventory of both existing and planned facilities. So an inventory of your current existing assets and any assets that you plan under this comp plan to invest in. A description of those planned improvements. And a capital improvement plan and schedule. And again, if you update this annually, it should be really easy to align that with your capital improvement plan from your budget. There's usually one more part that's not in my little flow chart here, and that's an introduction that provides some context about the port within its community, and your comp plan already has that and does a really nice job of that. And now I'm going to turn it over to Sarah.
Thanks, Abby. That's all really helpful. I'm going to talk a little bit about goals within the context of this process. And, we talk about goals in strategic plans and goals in comp plans, but as Abby mentioned, comp plans and strategic plans are not exactly the same thing, right? They run on different timelines, but they share certain elements. And I think goals are one of those, right? And so a goal is fundamentally about what the port wants to achieve over the lifetime of the comprehensive plan, right? And that timeline could wiggle because you're going to have the comp plan, as Abby pointed out, as long as you've got assets. But perhaps for specific assets, you're going to have some goals that are maybe more short-term and others that are medium or longer term. So I just want to note that when we talk about goals, you're all doers, right? There's a reason that you're either on the commission or have shown up for the meeting tonight, and it's because you like to do things. And often in these processes, we tend to really go toward action, right? We get right to tactics, like we got stuff to do, how are we going to get it done? With goals, I think we're really focusing on here the issue of how we get to those tactics, how we get to deciding what it is that we're going to do, because that's really the process that brings together the commission and the staff and the port and brings everybody into alignment, and is really critical to the port fulfilling its mission, right? Which, stealing from your last comp plan, right, is to speaks to creating jobs, providing infrastructure, and maintaining and improving economic vitality on a regional basis. So with that being said, some of the goals that we've seen other ports use throughout the comp plan updating process are transparency. As Abby mentioned, there's a two-way street for communication, informing the public and hearing what the public has to say. And then some of it might be more internal, right? Understanding, for example, so sharpening your own knowledge as a commission about existing investments, the need for additional improvements, and really helping to put those ducks in a row to prepare for action. The other thing is use of port assets, right? Kind of taking stock, are assets being used to the highest and best use in support of the port's mission? So those are goals that we've seen other ports really specify. And so I wanted to just ask you as commissioners if there are specific goals that you have for this comp plan update process and what those might be. We'd love to hear them.
Well, I do know, one, thanks for being here this evening and helping us, being subject matter experts in this. Because I can speak for myself. I am not a subject matter expert in comp plans or the processes. It would be interesting as far as goals is to figure out today and for the upcoming future, what do we need in our particular venue? And I see that you've done quite a few spots with other ports. For me, it'd be interesting to see, similar type size, similar type infrastructure ports. If there was an opportunity to kind of take a look at what they are doing in that also would help just educate myself, just like you talked about educating and being invested in it. Some of that process that you've worked through for those port sizes like us or have the resources or that we currently have similar. That would be handy for me to take a look at for one. On that goal. The other goal, as I come to this, is to figure out one, we don't know what we don't know out there, and figure out, are we utilizing what we currently have assets wise, just like you talked about, to the highest degree to meet our goals or our mission of what we're trying to do as this county, this particular county. And seeing where we're at there and expanding on the stuff that we do well. And continue and taking a look at maybe reevaluating some things that we may or may not do. And within this process, I'm interested to see how that develops and how you can provide those tools for the commission on that research end of it to figure out where we're at to help develop some of those goals. That's kind of where my mind's at with it. So that's just kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
Commissioner Watts, I agree with you completely. I guess my goals through this is to make sure that we're utilizing the community's assets that we control to the best possible means and making sure that, we're responsible with those assets and that they can, be used for the absolute best possible utilization of those. And also make sure that we are using those assets in the direction of the port that's in line with the values and directions that the community wants things to go and what the community is looking for. So that's really what I'm looking to get out of this process.
Thank you. I'll have to echo the other two commissioners. We're all green, if I can say that. I have 1 year on the commission, along with my other two members of the commission here. So the goal would be, as they have indicated, is to just review what we have and make sure that it's being used to the utmost need as decided by the community. Looking forward to the direction and the information that you provide, and looking forward to the final report, the final comp plan.
Great. Well, thank you very much to all of you. That's incredibly helpful for Abby and I to hear. And what we're hearing a lot of is, a desire for information, right? And it sounds like information exchange, perhaps related to other ports. I think that's great. That's definitely a best practice that we've seen in both the comp plan world and the strategic planning world for ports. And as Abby mentioned earlier, right, when we're hearing from you now, this desire for, kind of a two-way street, right? Being attuned to what is the feedback that's coming from the community and how does that enter into the comp plan. So this is all really helpful and thank you very much for that feedback. So when we think about the process, just to dive into that a little bit more, other side of the coin here, we will be meeting with you at different points as a commission to provide updates at a couple of critical junctures, right? And one of those will be to present the results of interviews. So as Abby mentioned, we'll be doing those in a couple of different formats. Development of a communications plan will be another milestone, right? So how is information about the planning process being shared with the public? How is information from the public being received? workshops we talked about, right? So those will be in a public meeting format and provide an opportunity to really get into specific issues related to developing a comp plan that's going to work for the Port of Columbia. And then finally presenting a draft plan and taking feedback, and then a final plan where we reflect on, what was the feedback that we received and how did it get incorporated. So those are the different points, or an overview of a couple of different points at which we're going to be coming back to provide feedback and keep you posted on how this is all coming together, answer your questions, and receive and integrate the feedback from the community. So Abby, anything else you would add here?
I got
Finding
one
my-
question.
Please.
Oh, yeah, as this process goes on, this is kind of a kickoff introduction through the process. What's the anticipated time frame that we can expect for this process to grow its legs, come to final fruition and implementation? What does that look like for a port like us?
That is an excellent point, Commissioner, and I actually overlooked that last talking point. Apologies. We estimate that this is going to take about roughly 9 months. So the different steps, different milestones that I talked about, how those get strung out around those 9 months is, to be determined, and we'll put a finer point on it as soon as we nail down, how many meetings we want to do in person or virtually, et cetera. But yeah, from start to finish, we're estimating about 9 months.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Absolutely.
I think the only thing I would add here, Sarah, is that this is a very iterative process. So it builds on itself. So as we're bringing in information, as we're hearing from you, as we're hearing from the community, as the community is communicating to you their interests and desires for the assets of the port, it all builds. And so it'll over time begin to, if we do this right, begin to become more clear on the direction that it will go and what needs to be updated and how you want to steer the ship. If I could use a port analogy.
Excellent.
I got one more question.
Mm-hmm.
I got all kinds of questions, but so when we talk about this developing this plan, it's kind of a taking a look, a deep dive of our current comp plan, developing a new comp plan for going forward. Is there a process in there for reevaluation and ideas of how we talked about the annual, just kind of a look at and resolution? Is there a process or is there some guidance that can be driven after this is done? Say, here's some guidance how to do that.
Here, I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two things I'd like to address, commissioners. So wanted to just come back and clarify a little bit. So what this process will result in is a report of the feedback received, of your direction, of your desires and goals for this process and for the comp plan, or excuse me, not for the process, but for the comp plan and for the port's assets. And then that report can be used for you to make a decision on what you want to change or add in your comp plan. So it's a little bit of splitting hairs, but wanted to make that clarification. And then
For
second,
sure.
yeah, thank you. And then secondly, so that was a really good point. Yes, we are more than happy to provide guidance on best practices as we know them around the state. I also highly recommend that you consult with your counsel, your legal counsel, to ensure that you're marrying best practice with what's legally required.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would love to learn more about, because what we've done is like more of a major update every 7 years.
Mhm.
Every 7 years, a major update, and then in between only change it if something really big came up. So doing it annually is a new concept for me. So I would love to know more about how that all ties together.
Absolutely.
It
Happy
doesn't
to
take,
talk
it
about
doesn't
that.
take a long time, we don't want to spend
Yes.
every month of the year planning, it needs to be, we need time to work on the plans, get stuff done.
And it's going to depend on the port too. So, best practice, yes, to do it every year. Does that mean that every year you have something that is going to be a big enough change that it has to be reflected in an updated comp plan? Perhaps not. And so I do think that that's an important consideration. I'm sorry, I think there was another question.
Now, I was just gonna basically say the same thing, depending on what our needs are with our port. It may be a biannual process, it may be as needed, but we take a look at it, make sure that we're, if there's anything on the annual basis and or biannual basis, just some kind of an idea and say, hey, let's put some kind of sustainability process in this for future commissions. That process in place is what I was looking at. Thank you.
Thank you. Great questions.
Very good. Excellent. So let's talk a little bit then about communications. Okay, so how we, as Abby mentioned, this is iterative. It's a bit like a dance, and a dance always takes a certain level of coordination and communication. As we mentioned, we'll be convening in work sessions with the entire commission, and we'll do that multiple times throughout the process in order to keep the process transparent and keep the lines of communications clear and also comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. We're going to be in between those meetings with the whole commission, coordinate or receiving communication via the port staff. And there's a couple of thoughts around that. One is, like we mentioned, it's a best practice for transparency and for legal compliance. And the other is that we're, as we go about updating this plan, we'll be working directly with the port staff to make sure that what we're developing is in line with what can be implemented, right? The port staff is doing the work day in and day out. So it's really about bringing together the commission as that guiding governing body together with the doers every day, the port staff, and receiving feedback from the community, right? But the port staff is really at the center of helping us receive and then passing on that information. Abby, what else would you add here?
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, it is about keeping the process really transparent and also bringing the community along as you go, right? So making sure that every step is communicated, that it's communicated clearly through the expected channels that they already know. They already know your commission meetings. They already know your website. So we're not going to be putting information in places or providing it in ways that they aren't able to access. It also helps keep it really clear so that there's not confusion around who talks to whom and where does all that go. It's just a very clear channel of communication that keeps us all aligned. There's one other piece that I think fits really well here that I meant to talk about a little bit earlier, but there's some pretty distinct roles in this process. The commission's role, as always, is to set policy. So you set policy, you have one employee, and that's your executive director, and you direct her, and then she directs the staff. She also directs us. And so as we're receiving input from you and you are giving her guidance and direction, that is coming to us as well. And so just making sure that we understand our role as well as yours. And then, of course, as we've mentioned, your counsel has a role in this as well, both advising from the legal perspective, but also, comp plan, the process of updating a comp plan is interesting because you have to not only think about what is needed now, but what's needed in the future. And while the process itself has legal requirements of, when you need to do notices and SEPA and all of those things, there are also future requirements for changes that you might make to your property and assets. So your counsel can help you think through some of those while you're thinking about what you're going to do 5 years down the road.
So the way I see this, you got your graph up here, make sure I'm on the same page. Commissioners or the commission, the direct line would be port staff, community direct line port staff. Port staff is the direct line to you. In addition, there's a circle with MFA and the port staff. So you wouldn't get anything coming from the commission. It would go from the commission to the port staff to you. Is that?
Unless it's in a public meeting. Right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, we're in your commission meeting now. We will come in those public workshops. So that would be the time that we would be hearing directly from you. And then there actually probably should be one other arrow here that's really your sort of territory, and that's the community to the commission. Right. So the community can come to your commission meetings, they can send in emails, they can see you at a community coffee or something and give you input in that way as well.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
You bet. Good question. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, well, Abby, shall we talk about next steps and where we go from here?
Yes, and we're right on time. I like that. I'm a bit of a stickler for time. Okay, so where we go from here? So as has been discussed, and as we mentioned, there's a lot of research that goes into this. So we have a team that on our end that's going to be helping us conduct research based on your input to us, based on Jenny's input and the direction that she needs to enact when you provide that direction to her. We will develop an approach. So part of that is the communications and engagement plan, the timing of these different milestones, the tools and tactics we're going to be using, those types of things will be in that approach. And then we will schedule workshops. So you have a monthly commission meeting. It's my understanding, at least initially, that those workshops would likely be in conjunction with the commission meeting. Regardless, they will be a public meeting because the commission will be there. And so we will figure out kind of how that falls, as Sarah said, in the 9-month timeframe. Anything else to add, Sarah?
Nope, I think you covered it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing now and just see if you have any additional questions or comments, or Jenny, if we missed anything, please don't hesitate to jump in.
I don't think so. That was great. Very enlightening.
Yes.
We do need to talk about the budget, the two options. So, did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure thing. Yeah. So really the only difference between the two options is that one is half virtual and half in person, and the other one is full in person. So we would come for all of the workshops. For the full in person, we would do half and half on the other option. And so it includes the full. So what you're seeing the differences in are travel time and expenses for lodging and mileage.
So that's totally up to you, gentlemen. We did budget 50,000 for this. But we've got cash on hand. We're not like we can't find it if that's what you would like. It's completely up to you.
I do like the interactions better in person, rather than trying to, am I looking at the owl? Am I looking at the screen there? Am I looking at my tablet or what? And it's easier for me with my vision issues, when we're doing things in person and communicating wise. I am apprehensive about the additional cost, but it's fairly minimal in consideration of the, importance of what we're trying to develop here. I think it would be advantageous to have the workshops in person, but I wouldn't object to saving the $10,000 if you guys want to do the hybrid option. But I think I think we could get more out of it in person. But that's my opinion.
Which I value, and I hear that. Yep. And you're spot on. The other side of that argument is it allows, one, the space is limited. It allows more community members to be here. If there's 2 people up there, I don't mind the hybrid as much, but I don't have the same set of glasses as you do. So I'm on board with it. I do like the fact that we try to be fiscally conservative and try to do, where we can and where we can shave for things, and if we don't need to. I do value the in-person, especially over the last couple of years with we get further and further away from in-person, and there's a lot of value with that those communications. But like I said, in this setting, pretty small setting, I think it still has a value. So I could go either way. I tend to be more fiscally conservative. If we can still get the job done, that's kind of where I sit with that.
I echo your point on being fiscally conservative. I feel I am also. Currently, our revenue far exceeds our expected expenses for total admin, general, and so my preference would be we spend the additional 10,000 to have all in-person meetings. So that would be my preference.
I would agree. If we can afford it, then I would prefer to have the in-person.
We're doing fine. We can afford it if you guys want to. It's fine. We'll make it work. So if that, but could you, could you make a motion? So that it's all, you
Yeah,
know, scoop 'em?
I think we're still discussing, but yeah.
Right, no, but I guess what I'm asking is, would you approve it for me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm good.
when you're ready.
And I know we're in a good spot, and sometimes we're not in a good spot.
Right, exactly.
Stay in a good spot though.
But we will stay in a good spot for sure. We don't want to get to that spot where we're not. So I mean, if you guys think the value is worth that in person, I'm on board with that as well. So
Could we have a motion then?
Well, I would move that we go with the in-person workshop option.
Okay. We have a second.
sure, I'll second that.
Okay, very good. We have a motion and a second to go with the estimated in-person budget, 6 in-person commission workshops at approximate $60,000. All in favor, say aye. All opposed. Nay, motion passed.
Oh, you didn't say nay, right?
I did not,
Oh, okay.
because we had 2 positive.
Okay,
We already had
I thought you said nay. I was like, you don't mean that, do you? Okay. Great.
Thank-
I think that's great.
Thank you very much. We're really looking forward to working with you all.
Absolutely. Nice to meet you all tonight.
Thank you. Looking forward to
Appreciate
it.
it. Thank you.
Thanks, ladies.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Would like to see something similar, kind of some of the
Somewhat.
finished work of some of the same type of ports or.
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah,
So if they did have something like that.
Oh, I'm sure they
I
will.
know they do. It'd be
Yeah.
nice to put my eyes on it and kind of,
Sure.
because what that'll do is jog some critical thinking throughout this process and how that applies to this county. So, because like I said, sometimes unless it's in front of you, you don't know what you don't know. So that can jog some things and have conversations with the community and those type of things. So I think it'd be super helpful for me.
I've learned a lot at going to the port meetings from other ports. Yeah, things you never think of. I would have never thought of. So I agree. That sounds great.
Okay, so we have finished with MFA, Alonji. The next item on the agenda is our review of the 2023 budget, and it's 5:45. And I guess if we can open up the public hearing.
Before you do that, do you want me to do any kind of a review? I know we've already been through it a lot,
Right.
so I guess the question is, does anybody care to have a review or are we good with it?
Commissioners,
Well, this is a public hearing for the final for that.
Mhm.
And there may have been people that have not heard this at all, so I would say a quick review.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be detail oriented, just kind of a quick view and overview so that we are meeting that mark.
Will do. All right. So the 2023 budget, I did stretch it to 2 pages, so it wouldn't be so tight, the type wouldn't be so small. We are budgeting that at the beginning of the year, we will start with $300,000 in our temporary investment, and a lot of that is broadband match that is restricted. So we're hanging on to it, although we're starting to spend it down, but hanging on to it for the broadband project. Estimating a beginning reserve of 150,000 and a cash balance of 100,000. We estimated 460,000 in port levy revenue. I did have a visit today from the county assessor, and I think I'm actually going to be, because I have to guess when we do this, and now they have a better idea of what they think we'll get, and I'm a little under, which is the way I like to do it, but I think it's pretty close. Leasehold tax pass through 25,000. You can see the rent revenue from our private businesses is about 300 and some thousand. Is it that high? 300? It's close to that. Miscellaneous grants and loans are the broadband projects and finishing the bike trail project for a total funds on hand of 4,366,000. Keeping in mind 3.2 million of that is grants, not our own generated revenue. And then expenses, admin and general is at 725,000, so it's actually less than our revenue generated. And then maintenance and capital improvements and all those projects are what add up to the 3.19 million. We have about 200,000 a year in debt service. One of our bonds is going to be paid off in the middle of this year, which is exciting. And then, so total expenses of 4.1 million, which would leave us with an ending reserve of 250,000, which is reserve and cash on hand. Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, with that opening summary, then I would like to open the public hearing at 5:49. Are there any comments on the proposed budget for 2023 here in the gallery? Hearing none, any on Zoom? Hearing none, I'll conclude the public hearing at 5:50. So we have a resolution in front of us then, resolution 2022-04. You have that in front of you.
this is provided by the county. It's not something we write up ourselves. They send it to us. So that's why it's filled in with the pen and it's very basic.
Okay.
And we don't have that one printed out, right? It's just on the.
It's-
I have the original that you can sign
Oh,
when you're, yeah.
perfect. I'm like looking forward going.
Oh, did you print it out? One?
lost.
It's part of it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it was in the packet. It looks something similar to this.
Yeah, I saw it online,
Yeah, I didn't print out.
but you did, okay, that's what I was.
Ah,
Okay,
so
got
you
it.
printed it out.
Thank you.
Got it.
You cheated, you printed your own.
I printed it. That's why she asked.
That's why I lost.
That's why she asked. All right, do we have a motion to adopt resolution 2022-04?
I will move that we adopt resolution 2022-04.
And that is for not putting in for zero tax increase.
Yep, and it's adopting the budget. Yep.
Adopting the budget
Yep.
to zero.
That's
dollars,
it.
Yep.
0% tax increase.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt 2022-04, approving the 2023 budget. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed.
Okay, I am going to have you sign the resolution. So they're just the blank lines. It doesn't have any names, just sign on the one on the side of the 3 lines. And then I'm going to have you sign 2 versions of the budget page because we keep one original on file and we have to give one original to the courthouse. So I need 2 originals.
All right.
Those are just all the signer pages. We have to provide copies to the auditor's office and assessor's office.
Okay, so do you want all 3 signatures here? just
No,
one?
the budget is just the chair and the
Yes.
secretary. Yeah. I don't know why, but it is. Yeah, the originals. All right, is that it? Thank you.
Pass that on. Otherwise, I'll be tempted to make it go paper, that's me.
Hey, there you go, Tracy.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is leases, I should say.
I have 3 leases tonight. The first one is with Andres Castellanos. He is the gentleman that is going to rent the garden at Blue Mountain Station starting immediately. He said he's already ordered seed and I think we would like to put up a high tunnel, which would be kind of fun. So he knows the weeds have to be taken care of or it's
Fantastic.
over for him.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
So he's gonna take over the whole garden, all of
Yeah.
the out front of Blue Mountain Station?
No, the one within the fence.
Oh, just the one in the fence, but
yeah.
the community type garden, is that what that's
Yeah,
still?
different people use those or take
Okay.
care of them, yeah. Sometimes it's a tenant that takes care of them. Jeannie's actually used a couple of them because she didn't have a sunny place in her yard. We're always looking for somebody who'd like to garden in one of those boxes and we don't charge. We just let them garden. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the one.
This is the one that, yeah, when we charge rent and then they have to pay the water bill.
Thank you.
Okay, and that is for a year and, I have signature page here. I'll just pass them all around at the same time. This second lease,
What is the rent on that one?
it's $25 a month plus leasehold tax.
And that has been the rent since forever? Since you start-
Yeah,
since you
and we, you
started?
know, we just did, I don't wanna make it hard for anybody. I'm trying to get them to, getting it to.
Somebody to maintain.
And,
it.
and the way we based it on was, our railroad leases at the time. We had a policy that they were $100 per acre per year. And so that was kind of where we started and that, because that's less than an acre, you know, it's less than a half an acre.
Mhm.
So that was kind of where we came up with our $25.
Okay.
So $25 a month plus.
Leasehold tax.
Leasehold tax.
Leasehold tax,
Plus
so-
water.
Yeah, then they have to, we have actually water meter, so when they use water, we read the meter every month.
Yep.
And charge them for their water use, because
Oh.
we have to pay the city for water
Yeah,
use.
the whole water use for that
For
particular.
that
meter.
garden, they have their own meter for that garden, so
Yeah,
they,
What that, what's that average?
it averages, oh, we figured it out, it's about. Oh, do you
I
remember?
don't know, that's.
It starts in April or May, April usually, and runs through October, and I think the average is $80 a month.
Okay.
Or maybe it was less than that. I can't remember. The worst month was like $140 in August. And some best months, you know, you don't need much water, so kind of depends on what they're growing and what they're doing.
So
Yeah.
potentially you're looking at, little over $100 a month.
Yeah,
to lease
yeah,
that
so-
house
yeah,
with
yeah.
all of that.
And then, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next one is. Jordan Henderson Fine Art. He rents in the Cameron Street co-working space. And he likes 1-year leases. And last year we we did a extension, so this is the new 1-year lease. And he pays $265 a month plus utilities. That's a building, we have shared utilities. So, and we raised his rent last time we wrote a lease, so this time I did not raise his rent.
And we wrote that last year. You say.
I raised it last year. Uh-huh,
As a yearly, so that would be
Yeah.
last year.
Mhm,
okay.
yep.
And what was the amount on that?
$265. He rents the backspace with, it's like concrete floor, uses it for an art studio.
Plus, utilities or,
Plus utilities, yes, he pays,
and that's shared.
that's the building where all of it's shared.
Yeah.
So the utilities are shared,
So they
yeah.
break it up.
Well, we just charge a flat rate and our goal was to just try to cover things. So we have to reanalyze that every once in a while and make sure we're covering things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you have
So,
4
yeah.
tenants and it's $100, then each tenant pays $25. Is
No,
that-
It depends on the size of the space,
Okay,
you
so
know,
it's
a smaller
calculated
space is
square
gonna
footage.
change.
Square footage.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
oh, yes.
I mean, we have a formula for that,
Yes.
so it's
Yeah.
consistent.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, and it describes it. It says that his, his leased portion is 912 square feet. The whole building is 3,360 square feet. It breaks it all out. And then we have a worksheet in the file that breaks out what each tenant pays for utilities. $125 a month. He pays $125 a month for utilities.
Okay.
On top of his 265.
Mhm.
And he pays leasehold tax on top of the 265. Okay, and then the last one is. The hospital district, they rent the building next door. The little gray building, and they have a 2-year lease. Their lease rent also went up the last time we signed a new lease, so I did not ask for a raise this time. They pay $816 a month plus leasehold tax for, I don't know what their square footage is. We have formulas for all the square footages on whether it's a building with carpet and paint and office, or whether it's a concrete floor, or if it has HVAC, it is a overhead door, all that stuff.
Mhm.
Okay, so let me find the. And they use that for a CNA training and then also for, they have a foot care clinic, different stuff. They just don't have enough room, I guess. As far as I can tell. And theirs is because they had an automatic 2-year renewal if they exercised it. This is just an addendum for their automatic renewal. Okay. Any other questions?
I don't,
Nope.
You guys okay with the lights still off, or do you want me to turn this back on?
I'm fine.
Okay, I'm fine, just make sure.
I'm
you
not
can
falling
see.
asleep yet.
Okay, good. Very good.
I like going to the cave.
We can turn it all on.
Okay, that hospital one is not a renewal.
It's an,
It
yes,
just,
it's an addendum.
okay. But this is an addendum to the lease, though, so
Mhm.
we don't have a lease renewal.
Okay, so we have a lease and it says. It is further understood that the lessee shall have the option to renew this lease for an additional period of, there's
Oh, so
2
this is
years.
the addendum, okay,
Yeah.
got it,
Yeah.
very good.
So they can have a 2-year period or whatever their period is, and then they can have
An addendum.
a chance to renew without us just kicking them out. And then we start over again with the new lease.
Mhm. And the garden was a one-year lease, let's see.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Oops, it just popped up.
Thank you. All right, finished with administrative items. On to the update on court assets. Oh, okay, that was 2. This is a.
Okay, thank you.
Um,
Okay, oh, you missed audit,
Oh,
state
sorry,
audit update.
you got it.
So I sent you stuff earlier. It was just for your information. It's not required, but I just thought I'd send it so you'd see what kind of questions they're asking.
Mhm.
So they ask a billion questions and we have to provide a billion documents and then they decide what they're gonna audit us on.
Mhm.
So, the next step is.
But I don't think.
Got another email today with, questions. They wanted a sheet of all our current tenants and, something else. I can't remember. So then when they decide what they're gonna audit us on, they will have what's called an entrance interview. Okay, and that can, and it can be with all commissioners. It's usually with a commissioner. But they do and a staff, and they do the entrance interview. They describe what they're going to do, and then they do their audit. And then at the end, there is an exit interview. They describe what they found in their audit and they have recommendations for improvements always,
Mhm.
and then we're done. So it is, it's a learning experience. It's sometimes frustrating because it just feels like, you try so hard and then they always find something, but that's the way it goes.
I have a
So-
question, I have a question on that.
Sure.
So when it's sent it out, there's a spot on here that says exception description. Is that on the same?
Is that a question and answer one?
It says category taxes and assets issued, capital asset listing, CCC purchase.
Mhm.
The board purchased a capital asset with its credit card and was not included in the board's capital asset listing.
Mhm.
So is this stuff that they've already found?
Oh, yeah, that was old.
So
And they
that's,
wanted to know how we responded to it. Yeah,
okay,
that was old. And that was something like, I think we bought a new computer and we forgot to put it on the list.
so was
That's
that
what
the
that was.
last audit cycle?
That was from before. Yeah,
Oh, so-
that was all from before.
So that's a
Yeah.
cap item, okay, so.
Those were all from before and they sent us. Those were things they had discussed last time with probably with staff. They don't even put them in their audit reports. See, they have all these different, their audit report is usually 3 or 4 sentences that says. Staff was helpful, they helped answer questions. Please monitor your financial condition. Thank you very much. And then the staff, they give you a list and they say, you need to do a better job making sure. You remember to put things on the capital asset list. Do you follow me?
Mhm.
And so that's the list they gave us when they were here in 2019. No. Yes, 2019. And then now they wanted me to answer the questions from then.
Oh, from then?
Yeah, I was answering questions from 2019.
Okay, so this is a cap, right, from the last audit, 2019 audit. This is the 1, 2, 3 items on here are from that last audit. And
Yeah.
they're asking you what our resolution was on that?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
And
then-
that is stuff that the commissioners don't always even see, but I just wanted you to see.
Yeah, well, that's,
Yeah.
yeah, we want to see that. Well, I want to see that, speak for myself. So we know where we're at with that. And those have all been corrected. Is that what on the,
They're not expected to be corrected. They just want to know what we're doing to try to make sure it doesn't happen. It's not like some checklist that if we don't correct them, we're in trouble. They just want to know, what did you do to try to do a better job? And sometimes they're silly, like the computer thing. I mean, people forget stuff. But so, yeah, I mean, ask Tracy. We talked about it at policy time. I'm like, okay, did we get everything on that list? You know, so it makes you remember to try to do it. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
They're not things we're in trouble for. They're things we're suggesting we should try to do just tighten up.
Right.
okay,
Yeah,
so, yeah, it says recommend. It
yeah,
doesn't-
exactly. Yeah. If you are really in trouble, it's called a finding.
Yeah.
The only time there's ever been a finding at this port since I've been here was my first year, and it was over a 3-year period I was not here for. And it was about bid law. The people before me had violated bid law. And the auditor's office made it sound terrible. And what it was is the cap for public projects at the time was $200,000. And I think they spent like $202,000, but it was like they had done they had what the auditor doesn't like, and they consider it breaking up a project.
Right.
Instead of bidding it out total, they'd broken it up and paid paid somebody to do this and this and this, and it added up to more than 200,000. And they considered that a finding, and they called it that in the report, they say that the port staff had put $200,000 at risk. So the reason I'm telling you this is I want you to understand some of the language they use.
Mhm.
That the port before us did not put $200,000 at risk. I mean, the staff before me, they didn't put $200,000 at risk. They just didn't follow the exact bid law. And that's the way the state views it, is it was at risk, because what if they put it out for bid? Maybe they'd gotten a bid for 175,000.
Mhm.
So do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So a finding is when they really are,
Violation.
or just, no, yeah, I guess a violation. They still don't really do anything, but. And so an exit item is something you guys they don't even give you the list, they give it to staff. Those are the things you're seeing are exit
Mhm.
items. And a management letter is when they're just wanting you to really pay attention to something.
Okay.
So that was the one I sent you
Yeah,
about
so
the
I-
financial condition, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. From the 2019 when I'd already told you guys we didn't have any money.
Right.
Okay,
That make sense?
yes,
Yep, you come in and ask anytime, I'll show you anything you wanna see.
yeah. I think
Happy to.
probably in my world, when I see cap or corrective action or recommendations, it's like,
Yeah, I guess I don't know what you're referring to by cap,
well, I mean,
Corrective action. plan.
corrective
yeah,
action.
correction action.
Did it say that on there somewhere?
No,
No,
Oh, okay.
it just looks,
That's a term
that's,
you know.
that's
Oh,
what
okay.
those look like, so I'm just trying to get the.
Yeah,
verbiage down, so-
they don't have that
um,
same term. They call them recommendations. Yeah.
Okay, so I did see it was a recommendation.
Yeah.
And then my thought process, okay, why is it a recommendation? Is it
Mhm.
because it leaves something open somewhere else? And
Yeah,
it's
but-
ideal, so,
And the reason I wanted to talk about this though, is I really want you to understand that sometimes the language they use is really frightening and it just isn't. That's why I said that about the port staff before us. They did not put $200,000 at risk.
but you know that the auditors are here to help you, Jenny.
I do.
Okay.
It's just,
Okay,
I do.
yes.
I do.
And they're not
And,
here to.
and
try-
that first one in 2007 was so helpful. I
Yes.
was
Yeah,
so new.
Absolutely.
And we didn't have, the only policy we had in this building was a personnel policy from 1976.
Oh, my.
So I wrote policies like a mad woman for about 3 months and tried to catch up with what they were expecting. So, yeah, I know they're training.
I was an
It's just-
auditor, so and people used to hate to see me come, so.
It's just from our end, it just feels like they're digging. They're gonna dig till they find something, but
Oh, come
thank you.
thank you.
Okay, any other questions on the audit, upcoming audit?
No,
No, okay.
Have they communicated with you directly?
no.
Okay, they will at some point. They'll send you an email. Not through me, they'll send you emails,
Right.
yeah.
So now on to agenda item number 2, an update on our port assets, the Rock Hill Industrial Park.
All right, we've been winterizing lots of irrigation systems at the industrial park and Blue Mountain Station. Tim, the handyman, helper, Double T Construction has been continuing to do weed eating and spraying for us and cleaning out gutters just in the nick of time before it started to rain. What else at the Rock Hill? Anything else? We've had little things on that voucher list, just another HVAC. Had a lot of HVAC calls this year and I don't understand it, but we have. What else did I see here? Overhead door company, the overhead door wasn't working at 521 Cameron. We had to have them come. That wasn't too much money. I think that's about it here.
Okay, thank you. Lions Ferry Marina.
Okay, so the upper restroom roof is being replaced. I think it's already done, got replaced this month. We are starting our annual planning with the Corps of Engineers. I don't know if you want to see that, but it is a massive packet of information that the port has to fill out for the marina. It's not the marina concessionaires that do it. We do it in coordination with them. So we're starting that. The first report is due January 1st and the second big fat report is due April 1st. That is when we have to show that we have a public water system operating permit, a public sewer system operating permit, a sewer management plan, a insurance, financial, we have to give them financial information, both the concessionaire and the port have to give them financial information. The list, it's quite big, so we're starting on that.
How is it? How
Annual.
Annual.
Every year, yep. Then the other thing that she brought up, she called me and she said, because we had talked, I mentioned to you before about the idea of a maintenance person, that I've kicked that around. Not sure if it, pencils financially, but gosh, it would be great. And she called because they struggle in the winter. They used to have a guy named Steve Wildman who lived in Starbuck who would come out, and if they needed a vacation, he would come out and monitor the place. Because when you have a marina, it's different than just having a summer RV park. There are people there year round. And so Steve would come out and check and clean the bathrooms and make sure things were okay so that they could get a break. Well, Steve is leaving. And so they were asking about the idea of if we had a maintenance person, because one of my issues is I don't need a maintenance person in the winter as much. If we had a maintenance person, if it could be a shared person that they could then pay to help them in the winter, not just for staying during vacations, but to have for some of their small projects. So we didn't come to any conclusion, but I just wanted to share that she had mentioned that. And so it's a thought. It's something to think about.
So
And for now, what I did was I gave her Tim Brand with Double D Construction does a lot of small jobs like that for us. So and he's somebody I would think about for if we were going to hire somebody, if he wanted to do that instead of have his own business. So I gave her his number and said maybe she could work it out this winter, just pay him as a contractor.
Right.
And so they were gonna talk and see if he can help her out this winter, so.
when you're talking about sharing, I mean, were you talking about, like, we would, I know it's just a discussion, be 9 months or 8 months, and then they would pay for 4 months in the winter?
Something like that, yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah. But it's not, we don't need somebody, we just don't need somebody full-time, so that's the thing, it would all have to be worked out, and the way we do things now, when we pay contractors, we don't have to own our own tools, we don't have to own our own equipment, it changes things, that's why I've been reluctant.
Insurance. all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah, but anyway, she did bring up that. The cities actually, we've talked about seasonal, sharing a spray person, it's just some of us are having so much trouble getting help and it's not full time that, I don't know. Anyway, it's just something to think about.
Something to talk about.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, Blue Mountain Station.
Irrigation and gutters again, both down there. We did have the roof repaired. I think I mentioned that, had Gillespie come and fix around the fans on the roof. The roof has a lot of big fans because of the hoods. The hoods that are in the systems, they all have fans that go out the roof, so that it was around the hoods. And he actually did more than just fix the caulking that had gone bad. He put flashing around them. He fixed them much more permanently. So I appreciate that. And then Sweet Cheeks is settling in, Sweet Cheeks Steak Shop is settling in Suite H. And North Home Bees is settling in Suite A. And I have a lead, for, not, I don't wanna call it a lead, I have a possible, existing tenant that would like to take over the rest of building number 2,
Wow,
but that has not been settled yet, so it's just
wow,
I know.
that's a big
Pretty
spot.
cool. I know, and they're growing, so it's kind of fun.
Mhm.
So, that more on that later.
Thanks.
And then we had a fun kitchen user today that I think Tracy dealt with, somebody who was a new user who's gonna come in and use it for the holiday season. They're going to different craft shows and bazaars and want to come in and use it to bake. So that was kind of fun.
I had a
That's it
question
there.
about Blue Mountain Station.
Sure.
So, the shop that's in there that was designed to, sell the wares of the individuals that actually have businesses in there,
Mhm.
that was the intent of that,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, somewhat,
Was there any intent to bring in outside? Like say produce or all that stuff that's not local, was that the intent? Some of the conversations I've had is wondering how we do that, whether or not it was truly supposed to be local vendors in there or. the Blue Mountain Station.
Selling the regional stuff is totally part of the business, the original business plan, yeah. But
Yeah,
it's kind of evolved, it's evolved as it started.
regional,
the
by
idea-
how big,
I don't think there was a definition. There wasn't a definition, I don't think.
okay,
The term was local and we might have said, well, we were using that place out of Duper, so that was.
Well, yeah, there's not enough produced there to just have a shop. I mean,
just
Yeah.
asking a question.
Right, no,
definition of Local, what the intent was, so some of the process of putting my head when we're going through the comp plan.
right,
those
but
type of things.
they're a private business, so we don't tell them how to run their business,
Yep.
yeah. But they do help out by selling the products that are made on site.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know how far away products are that come there, but the intent for the board members that serve that, or that run that co-op is to local first,
Okay.
local first. If it's local, don't you agree? You're not
Yes.
on the board anymore, but
No,
yeah.
That was the intent.
So that was the intent, is help local businesses as best they can.
More of a question for me. just,
Yeah.
Understanding that process. Thank you.
And the whole farmer's market thing, it's something, this would be good discussion to have during the comp plan, but
Mhm.
in my, however many years I've been trying to do this here, I can't tell you how many years we tried having farmers markets, and they just don't generate enough revenue for the people that are there to make any money,
Mhm.
to sit there for 6 hours and make money.
I
And
can see
that was one of the reasons that co-op group started it, because if they could sell those products for the grower on consignment, so the grower didn't have to be sitting there for 6 hours waiting to sell their eggs, that they all felt like it was beneficial. And I think they have about 40 vendors that they sell for now. They have viewed it as beneficial. So,
Thank
yeah.
Mhm. All right. Columbia Walla Walla Railroad.
I did reach out to the appraiser, and I'm still waiting to hear back from him on getting a more concrete price.
Okay.
But I did reach out, and I'm waiting. I have not heard back from him.
A more
And I
concrete-
supplied pardon me?
You said a more concrete, you were still looking at an estimate, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, we have an estimate of between 7,500 and 12,000,
Uh-huh.
but Seth said he wanted a more closer estimate, so.
Okay.
And that's for the services to appraiser, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Any ETA on that, or are we just,
No, we haven't made the decision to do it. I was just getting pricing, that's why. Oh, ETA on the
the price?
the pricing?
Yeah, 'cause
Well,
I
he
think,
already gave us the 7,500 to 12,000.
okay.
He already gave me that. He gave me that months ago.
Mhm. So what are we looking at? What are we waiting on him for?
Seth said he wanted a more concrete price of which price between the 7,500 and the 12,000 it was really gonna cost.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, there's. Okay,
High end would be 12,000.
Right.
Okay.
And I supplied a letter of compliance to the rail operator for his, he asked for a letter for his file that he had submitted all the reports for the year. So I did that.
I do have a question on the railroad, so if we have a price on there, what's holding us back from getting it evaluated?
And the comp plan,
So I'm just curious why we would want to do that if it's not in the comp plan to potentially sell the railroad.
Those are my questions.
Mhm.
And, the comp plan's guidance, and I'm diving into that a little more. But if we see the value in that, are we waiting 9 months in the event that it does meet the comp plan? Or there is a process in that comp plan, talking with council and making sure we're crossing Ts and dotting Is. But I'm not dragging my feet on. I want to know whether or not indeed, there's a problem with it. And then we jump through those loopholes and see what that is, but just to sit back and say, well, I don't know. So I think we need to look at that and see if indeed it is within the scope of our current comp plan. And have those discussions. That's my thought process on it.
Okay.
Well, I guess my concern is if nothing is happening at the moment, we have an offer to purchase or an interest to purchase from a potential buyer from the operator, and we're just sitting here holding back to wait until the comp plan is gonna be done, which isn't gonna be for another 9 months. So, that kind of just puts him in a state of limbo where I feel that we could be moving forward with this. And of course, it won't be finalized, if we decide that this is the direction that we want to go. It's not like it's going to be sold and written up and the contract on it signed next month. It's going to be a process. It's going to take time.
Mhm.
But I think it's important, with transactions like this and with other transactions that we deal with, if we have somebody that's looking to purchase a piece of property in order to make their business better or to grow their business or to open their business, then it's up to us as the holder of these assets to facilitate that process as efficiently and quickly as possible. It seems to me like we're just we're just gonna wait and see what happens. There's obviously interest in proceeding with, the process of selling this, or at least investigating further if that's what we're gonna do by at least, a couple of us commissioners. And every month it comes by, well, we can't do anything until we do the comp plan. Well, the comp plan is just guidelines, and these are assets that we control that I think that we can do a whole lot simpler without as much delay and dragging our feet. Because, if I was the buyer of this, my interest very well might start to deteriorate over the months as we just sit here and push it off and push it off and push it off, and maybe 6-9 months down the road, when we finally get around to getting somewhere in a comp plan, I might not even want it anymore. So from that aspect of it, I would really like to see the process of this moved along, the process with our other transactions that we're working on as well, for example, Table Rock Meats. I don't understand why we haven't even talked about scheduling a public hearing for the sale of that. We agreed at the previous meeting that we're going to, we'd like to see them move ahead and get opened up. I'm sure they have deadlines and timeframes that they're working on. Time is money, and money is, important to people. And when it's tied up for months and months in government bureaucracies and people dragging our feet, that doesn't settle well with me, that we're the holdup for these different entities wanting to improve their business. I would really like to see things start moving with this railroad, especially since we have valid interest on the table. I would really like to see this start moving forward. If it's something that we're considering, let's decide if we're going to do it or not.
Okay, so my thought on this is all we had was an email correspondence from the owner saying, I might be interested in buying. He didn't say I was, going to. It was just a very small email. It didn't sound like it was a set in stone that yes, he was interested right now in selling it. So to me, it doesn't appear that it is that necessary for the appraisal to come until we have a bona fide, yes, I want to sell it right now. I mean, I want to purchase it right now. That's my thought on the railroad. I see here the Table Rocks, we have next steps. I presume we're going to be talking about that and what the process is on that. So I'm not sure why you think that we're holding up anything if it's on the agenda and we're going to be talking about it.
Well, it just seems like we talked about it and agreed and that we should move forward with that in the last meeting, and here we are, over a month later, and we haven't even talked about how we're going to do the public hearing. I'm sure they have timelines and deadlines of wanting to get their business open and started, and I just want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to facilitate that process.
Okay, I see next steps here, so I presume we are going forward on that, so my thoughts.
One last topic on that, and what I'm talking about is the appraisal.
Yes, I understand.
So, I don't see anywhere in there that we can't understand the value of an asset. I'm not talking about selling it. I'm not talking about anything with that. I want to know the value of that asset
Mhm.
in the event that we are able to, go down that path. If it makes sense for the county, the investor, whatever it may be, but until we have an asset value, that just makes sense that why we wouldn't be doing that right now and waiting, this doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, so we do have an estimate on what the land under the railroad would cost. Per acre value of that land? I mean, 'cause
Well,
we-
not an appraisal, but
No, no,
you
no.
know, an educated guess.
Yes. We do have an educated guess.
Well, we're looking at appraisal and that's not an educated guess. I want to see that appraisal moving forward. In the event that I don't see anything in there that we cannot appraise assets in our comp plan.
Okay, Jenny, any thoughts?
Do we
The
get to
reason-
have public comment at the end?
That's up to you guys.
What was that?
Somebody asked if there could be public comment at the end.
We had it at the beginning.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have no problem with public comment at the end. I
Okay.
think it'd be a good idea to do that all the time.
all right. Yes, go ahead.
No, at the end.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I thought you were telling her to go ahead.
No,
I'm sorry.
We'll have public comment at the end also. Thank you.
Okay. So I will just tell you my understanding of things and then you can decide what you want to do. My understanding of things is that a port district does not make a decision to sell an asset as ginormous and valuable as a railroad on a whim, which is why there's a comp plan, which is one of the reasons I've asked us to go through this process, because I want you to be able to do what you want to do and set the vision that you want to set. So I do not, I mean, if you want to do an appraisal, that's fine. You cannot lead somebody to believe you're going to sell it to them until it's been vetted through the public comp plan process.
Right.
So I think that I understand what Jeannie is saying, why she's saying, why would we spend the money if we hadn't done it yet? But it's totally up to you guys, okay?
Mhm.
In regard to Michelle's project, I've met with the port attorney and there are, again, this is a public asset. There are very detailed steps that you have to take to do something like sell port land.
Mhm.
So there is no foot dragging. There is a staff that is managing a great deal of projects at the same time and doing it as quickly as we can. And I've been talking with Michelle and updating her. And I have a list at the end that I was going to discuss with you. If you would like to choose to do something that isn't in the comp plan, that is your choice. My job is to let you know what I understand the law to be so that you know the decisions you're making. Okay?
Yeah, do you see an issue with understanding the value? Is that violating a comp plan?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
It's
I'm
just,
not talking
yeah,
about
no.
promising nothing to nobody.
Nope.
I'm just talking about understanding the value of a current asset that will help drive us in a comp plan. Understanding that is a part of that puzzle.
yeah, I do not think there's no reason you cannot have it appraised. No.
I guess I don't understand where the boundary line is between what makes a port asset still valuable that we can't sell it without adjusting the comp plan. Or another piece of property that we can declare as surplus because we're not using it and sell, where is that cutoff line that we have to adjust the comp plan to sell a piece? Or we have to declare a piece of surplus to sell?
Well, the
you know?
surplus stuff we've done, except for one mistake I've made in my career here. It's like little pieces along the railroad right of way that the rail operator says he doesn't need. It's truly more like a surplus, like it's not a need.
It's a minimal value.
Yeah,
asset.
I guess, yeah,
I
I
guess
guess,
that's how I
I
would-
think that would be a great question to ask the
Right.
consultants when we're going through it
It seems to me
yeah.
if we have a couple different pieces of property or whatever it is that. That would be more beneficial to the public or to whoever's trying to purchase it and develop it, that it would make sense to, save it. As surplus to us because it would make more sense to have it in a public the public eye, but you know.
There's a difference between, and I'll explain it to you when we get down to what I've learned about the property Michelle wants to buy.
Mhm.
Because it's part of a development district or a industrial development district, so it's way different. We do not have to update the comp plan. When we get there, I will describe to you
Mhm.
why. But it's because of a long planning process and how and why it was developed.
Mhm.
So, but there really is, I mean, there really is, that's why there are those laws in place, is to
Right.
protect public assets.
Yeah.
The decision to sell something like the property that we're trying to sell to Michelle
Mhm.
is, I don't remember the exact words the attorney gave me, but it was like, I have it written down. Is it in the best interest of your constituents to sell this property?
Mhm.
So it isn't, it has to be vetted publicly. It just has to be.
Right.
So that's all.
I don't think, I know I'm not arguing that. at
Well, I'm
all.
not-
I
I'm
never
not
have
either.
argued that.
I'm not,
I understand your
I
point.
am not looking to circumvent or any of those things.
Mhm.
I want to understand the value of that asset so that in the event that we do go down that path, following the correct procedures and steps by the law, that we have that information. And I'm not waiting for that.
I understand that. So I guess my thought, continuing on the need to know what the asset value is today. What if it's 9 months from now, when he wants to actually put in an offer to purchase that, then we do another appraisal?
I understand that there is risk with everything, with that, but I would like to understand because I have no clue today.
Today. Okay.
and I think just one more thing I will point out is that it isn't just financial value that has to be considered. And I think that's what the comp plan thing is. It's
Right.
the community value and all those other things. So
Like I said,
I'm really not trying to argue with you. I am really trying to do my job, which is is to not get the port in trouble for,
Mhm.
yeah, that's.
Perfect. And that's what we have here for, and that's what I want you to continue.
Okay, thank you for your thoughts. Mhm. All right, anything else with the railroad? No, okay, under community and economic development, your report.
Okay, I'll talk about Woody's first. So, I have been working with a buyer for Woody's for well over a year. He's probably disappeared at this point, but he was ready to buy it before the fire. Just the other day, I don't know, a month ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever, I was driving by and I saw a contractor that I know coming out of Woody's and I about fell out of my car. So I stopped and went in. And the guy who owns it was there, the contractor was there, they had a structural engineer there. And the concern is the shared wall between Woody's and the Eagles. It has a crack at the top. And so the guy who was going to buy Woody's does not want to buy it until he knows whether or not that wall is okay. And so the realtor was there, realtor owner was there trying to get into the Eagle side to see because they need to look at it from that side. And the Eagles said they could not go in because of the insurance. They're having whoever did I don't know, something about the demolition and damage and the insurance company and this demolition company are, okay? So at the time I called Lupe and said, can they get in? He said, no, they could not. So, I called, or we talked to, I shouldn't say I called, the realtor guy talked to Clint from the planning department and the city, because in the past, it is not okay for one building to harm its neighbor. You know, there's actually an RCW that does not, it doesn't have to do with walls, but it has to do with the health and welfare of the citizens and how it could damage another one. So they were talking about going down that path. I don't know. It's really not my issue. It's really theirs, but doing anything we can to try to get it settled. Since then now, Bob Yost has purchased it. So I'm really hoping there's action, has purchased the Eagles, not the Woodies, the Eagles. So I hope there's action because that's what's holding up anything happening at Woody's. And I went in and I've been in several times and it's different now since the fire. It smells like water, must. Before it smelled like an old place that they didn't clean out all the food coolers and stuff. And now there's soot everywhere and it smells like must. So
moldy.
Anyway, it is just it's just kind of a mess. Yeah, I feel sorry for the guy that owns it, but I don't know if he's just trying to get it so that he can get it sellable. Because right now it's stuck. Does that help answer your question? Okay, yeah.
And what's our role in that particular building as a board?
The economic development contract that we have through the state, I try to assist businesses that ask for assistance. So the
So
person
they-
who was buying Woody's had come to me and asked me for assistance, like 18 months ago, probably, long time ago.
I see.
Yeah. Yeah. Does that help? Do you have any other questions?
No, breaks
Okay.
my heart.
I know, mine too. Mine too, very much. That big beautiful bar, and it's still it's still okay in there. It's just, they could just get that wall settled. They could do something, but it doesn't, and you know how buildings are when they sit, they don't get any better.
I guess
Yeah.
I do have one more question if you don't mind about that.
Sure.
So are there any organizations that can actually help a person or let's just say a person purchase that building to open it up? So they would have to help rehab that building, help that person start up a business. Are there any organizations that can help an individual do that?
Well, if you mean like as a private business, like the Small Business Development Center, or do
But
you
it's a
mean
dilapid-
something different?
But it's a dilapidated building. and so
Yes.
It's not like a viable business has been in there.
I have never found in my years here, any big help. The best help is if the sale price can be dropped enough. So with the building that actually the county commissioners operate out of in the bottom, that's that RCW I mentioned about health and welfare. Because that building was just derelict for years and years and years. There were holes in the ceiling. But the seller wouldn't sell. Sometimes people use them as tax write-offs. I don't know what they're thinking. But so using that RCW, the city went in and said, look, you need to either fix this building or sell it, or we're going to condemn, or I don't know if they got that far, but it's basically, we're gonna take action if you don't do something. So that pushed him into dropping it to a price that Jenny Butler could justify buying it and fixing it. Does that make sense?
It does.
And so the same thing happened with the Frontier 2 building. It was the same thing. They wouldn't sell for years and years and years. And Jeremy finally, plant, whoever had the fire department go through and say, this is not safe. They dropped the price, somebody bought it. So that's, but the Eagles building is so complicated because there was insurance involved and, but it's past the year. The RCW says if a building sits there for past a year and isn't being taken care of, that then the powers that be can step in and demand that at least be brought up to safe standards. They can't make somebody sell, but they can, yeah. So that's,
Is there any
but I don't
help?
know, they're historic tax credits. Okay, so here's, if someone were to be able to purchase that building and you sign up for the tax credit program through Columbia County, you can get your taxes you pay on the building will be pre-restoration price for 10 years. That is how Jenny Butler did the hotel. Because think of the savings, you've made, hundreds of thousands of dollars of improvements in that building. You don't have to pay tax on it for 10 years. So that's that's probably the number one incentive. And then the second one is you can get a federal tax credit for rehabbing a historic building.
Okay.
So it's more about tax credits than it is actual money. But yeah. But I do know that the Small Business Development Center gentleman has said there's more funding available these days than there has been. So he's worth talking to also if anybody has a business idea, because there's quite a bit of, there's been some changes since the COVID money with what businesses, how they can assist businesses. He's a really good guy. So yeah.
Thank
Okay, does that help? All right.
Thank you.
The SEDS meeting is set for, that's our community, comprehensive economic development strategy meeting that we do each year with our stakeholders in the community, businesses, other organizations. We're going to hold it in person this year, December 7th from 11:30 to 1 at the youth building. And with the port does provide the food, so an RSVP is required. And we have not started inviting anybody to that yet. I wanted to report on some of the groups that I am part of, just so you understand some of what I do in my spare time, haha. The Dayton Development Task Force, I think you all know what that is. That is the Main Street group that, and I am the secretary. Tracy takes the minutes. This is the group that tries to help keep downtown Dayton economically viable in partnership with the chamber. That's their biggest partner. I am on a regional task force called Elevate. It's a regional educational attainment group. And their goal is to work with middle schoolers at this time to try to help them understand opportunities for for jobs in the future. So they have found that the best time to hit a child and maybe spark interest in them is middle school. If they get past middle school, you might not be able to, find the spark. So that's the focus of that group right now is middle school, and then scholarships for training after high school, and it doesn't have to be college, it could be certifications, the trades. Key Communicators is a new group that the school has started where they're trying to share information with community members. So I've been to one of those. They've had 2 meetings. I've been to one of those so far. The Palouse RTPO, that's the Regional Transportation Planning Organization. The port, the county, the city, and the 4-county region, Garfield, Asotin, and Whitman are all part of the Palouse Regional Transportation Planning Organization. I am the vice president. They have recently hired a new director, which was very hard. They don't have a lot of money. It's money that comes from the state through DOT, but they found a great candidate that lived in Moscow. And so she just started this month. And the benefit to our port is that they are definitely paying attention to short line railroad needs and feasibility studies. And we make sure that any of our projects are in their transportation plan. They do one that's for just a few years and then also do like a 20-year transportation plan. And we provide input on our railroad, obviously, but also roads and bridges and other infrastructure in the community that helps to support freight movement and other things. And they meet quarterly, so it's not super time consuming. WEDFA is the Washington Economic Development Finance Authority. This is a state governor appointed position on a board that allocates the state's share of bond funds for economic development projects, either tax exempt projects or solid waste projects. This is the group that authorized bonds for Columbia Pulp's construction. I was not on the board at the time, but that's an example. And that's because they had they were considered a solid waste project. So that's interesting. They meet, it's not monthly, but it's more sporadically, but it's interesting, all Zoom meetings. And if I do travel to their meetings, they pay for them. I've not done that yet, but they'll pay. WEDA is the Washington Economic Development Association. That is a statewide group that I've been a member of for about 20 years. And they are a conduit to a lot of the state funding and definite legislative action in relation to economic development items. So that's a good group. Same with Washington Public Ports Association. I'm also on the Washington Public Ports Association Broadband Committee. That is where I've learned about these funding sources for the broadband projects. And they also are considering legislative actions. One of them is, we already charge leasehold tax for everything we do. And now they're wanting to, so we have to charge leasehold tax when we lease the fiber to the 3 local companies that are going to provide internet. And now they're talking about wanting to charge sales tax. And we consider that double taxation. So the WPPA has a committee that is trying to, because they have a lobbyist, so they're trying to pull together a way to try to fight that with the Department of Revenue. Yeah. And then MERIT, this is new. This was a fun one. This is the Maritime Administration, Federal Maritime Administration. I had a gentleman named Travis Black reach out to me, so I met with him this week. And we actually discussed the 9 acres out at Lions Ferry that we have next to the Columbia County Grain Growers facility that could be a barge facility someday if there was business interest. That's the kind of thing they could fund. So that was kind of fun. They can fund other private sector facility infrastructure through the port. So if there was a business that wanted to locate there that wanted to use the river, they could help support that activity as long as the funding went through the port. So it was great that he reached out. We don't have a lot of activity on the river, obviously, but he was interested to see that property and thought it was pretty great out there. He also said if there were any federal lands that could be used for ports for port use, that the nexus is it has to be next to water. But it could be conveyed to a port free of charge, and he gave an example for the Port of Benton, which I thought was interesting. So if there was core land out there that we really felt like we had a use for and could prove that we had a use for, we could potentially take ownership of it. And we discussed the Highway 12-261 bridge, the one that goes from Lions Ferry over to the park, how narrow that is. That's something I've been trying to beat the drum on for several years, that somebody needs to think about replacing that bridge. I don't know whose job it is, but somebody needs to think about it. Anyway, I just thought I'd give that update.
Inovio?
Oh, Inovio, that's a private foundation out of Spokane. They've been handing out a lot of money to different groups. They like to do health and welfare, economic vitality. It's the group that we got the small business, the startup funds that we had before. So I serve on their grant advisory committee.
Interesting.
Okay,
So with the set meeting, that's the one that we sent an invitation to
Yes,
last November before
yep.
we took office.
yes.
How are the stakeholders or the invitations, how are the invitees determined for that?
I send it to the city council, the county commission, the chamber board, the task force board, and then any of the private businesses that have been participating anyway.
Right.
And then the nonprofits in the community, all as many as I can think of.
Mhm.
So if there's somebody that's missing there, I'm happy to invite them. But it's definitely try to keep it to businesses, nonprofits, stakeholders, people that are working on economic development. Yes,
I just
So
saw
if
how
you-
it was-
yeah, but I'm happy to include anyone if you think there is somebody that's missing.
Okay, thank you.
It's a fun meeting.
Okay, thank you for all of that. I had no idea how involved you were with. different
I
committees.
suspected that. That's why I
Yes.
thought maybe I needed to share.
Thank you very much. Tenants appreciation, number 3.
Okay, and before I go on, I didn't mention to you the two things in there that I do that I consider to be more on my personal time, which is the Depot Board and Skyline Juniors. So I just left those out. This was port related. Okay, tenant appreciation, every year we try to do something. This was a WPPA suggestion when I first started at the port, something to show appreciation to our tenants. So I just wanted you to know that we are preparing to do we usually do like a little candy tray or something at Christmas and try to buy products from local companies. And sometimes we'll put like a little coffee bag of Regina's coffee in it and, cookies, stuff we find around town and stuff we make ourselves. And so I just wanted you to know I was going to do that.
Okay, if you need some cookies or anything, just let me know.
Oh, okay. I don't think I've ever had a port commissioner offer. That's awesome. Did you hear that, Tracy?
hear that. That's great.
Thank you. Tina.
How do you just deliver those out to?
Yep, we take them to the businesses. Yep, we go usually at least 2 or 3 of us and we just go and deliver it right to the businesses. We try to do it not the week of Christmas Eve, but the week before. We find that the week of Christmas Eve, people start to disappear. So we take them and, like we'll take Dayton Tractor a bigger tray because we know they have customers and, that retail counter they have. So we'll take them a bigger tray so they can share with lots of people. And whereas Ed next door is one guy, we take him a little plate and because we've taken him bigger before and he's like, how am I supposed to eat this? So we've learned over the years how much to take.
Great. That's awesome.
All right, broadband, the status on the Dayton Community Broadband Project.
Okay, I sent you out the RFP materials just so you would have them, no action required. In order to, because of the federal funds, we have to let everything ruminate for 4 weeks. So I want to get the ads in the paper and get it out there. So we won't be able to, the goal is to have them returned on December 8th. So at the December meeting, we could make you could approve the whatever proposal. We'll get the proposals and analyze the proposals and send them to you. It's just for materials, but the federal money makes it more complicated. And then the construction drawings are nearly complete and I also want to tell you, I'm going to be on vacation from Friday to Friday. And while I'm gone, Kara and Mark are going to pull together everything we've worked on into a bid packet. And when I get back, we're about ready to put it out for bid,
Okay,
which is great. Again, it has to be out for 4 weeks. So that'll be the big construction part. So it should go out either the week of November 21st or 28th. I just don't know how much I'll have to do after I get back, but they're going to work on pulling it together while I'm gone. If we're all 3 of us vacationing in November, so Kara's gone this week, I'm gone next week, Mark's gone the week after. So we're kind of sharing the load.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have one thing on that broadband. And I know I said it before, and I just want to reiterate it, really critical to me that is done clean. We work with the residents. Making
Mhm.
sure that we're doing, professional. If they have concerns, we're addressing those concerns. We're not, discounting them and say, well, this is going through. Have those conversations, with the residents. If there, any of those come up, I want to make sure that we are, taking care of that. And if there's something that, like we discussed before, if it's a mess up there and we can remove some from the last TV or whatever.
Yeah.
That we do that during the process. I just want to make sure that is important to me throughout this process. To make sure that we take every step that we can, to make it as clean. Make sure we have good communication with the individuals that are, whether it's running through their property or whatever it may be. I just want it to be, I just want to have sight on that.
Okay, good point. Have you heard any concerns?
A few,
Oh,
like I
could you
said,
share those? Could you share those? So we know,
concerns,
yeah.
well, one of the concerns, I won't share the individuals per se, but I just wanted. There was one that had a conversation early in the process. I don't know when it was, maybe it was even before it went out to the whole plan. Saying, hey, could you do this? Because if you put it here, it's gonna be right in my line of sight. Or.
Oh,
could you
I know
stop it
which
here?
one you're talking about, yeah.
Okay, and then the conversation was like, well, we're gonna do it anyways. That's the lead that I got from the individual. So what I don't want to have is a bunch of those conversations with community members in a negative light like that. So if we can make sure that there are people that are not necessarily particularly tickled about it, as some people are. So just making sure that cognitive thought in that process when we go through this, that is there.
Sure.
With our contractors, with us as the port, with staff, commissioners, those type of things.
You bet, and I agree with you 100%, but what would really be helpful for me is if you ever heard something like that, if you'd call me in between meetings and let me know. Because I don't want there to be misunderstanding, so I make mistakes,
Like I
so
said,
I would really like to know, but telling me here, I can't. So I'd love it if you would let me know and I can help try
I'm
to
sure
bring your
you-
answers.
asked me
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah.
was
Oh,
trying
I
to
know.
in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah, well, I know,
So-
and I know who you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about. But I want to tell you that in that case, the fiber is not, it's not entering as property. So that's a little bit more difficult because it's not entering as property. So there are 55 potential customers. So I will, when we have it ready, I'll send you the list, so you have it. That if they want the service, it will need to be buried to their house because there are no overhead lines, so it'll be their choice. And if they choose to have it now, the port it's part of the construction project, so it'll be paid to be buried to their house. If they don't do it now, then later. So that's gonna be a hard one to get right for people to understand why we would be offering it now, and if they come back a year from now and say, I want your fiber,
Mhm.
why it wouldn't necessarily be paid
Yeah,
for.
good
Does that make
communi-
sense?
Yeah, good communication. Like I
Yeah.
said, just want to be cognizant of it, to the best of our ability. There's no way that everybody's gonna be
Mhm.
happy with
Yeah.
everything. But I want to make sure that we're doing our damnedest to do the best job we can to do that.
Mhm. Have you heard any more comments, or was that the one and only?
Well, I think I think I made my point, and I think we'll leave it there.
Okay, very good.
If there's anything you think I could do in between those, let me know. I'm happy to do it. Okay, let's see.
And the Tushi Valley.
Just the contract is signed. I haven't done anything about putting out an RFP yet, but that's next for the design. And I really like the guy that designed this project, but we gotta put it out, so.
Mhm.
I'm hoping he has time and responds and they have a good price because he's been great to work with. Let's see, so I said about construction drawings going out for bid. We will have a public meeting about the broadband, but we are going to wait until we have the contractor. So when we have the public meeting, the contractor can be there and then they could answer questions from the public. We thought that was a better idea. Yeah,
All right.
probably January.
All right, housing.
I just wanted you to know I've been attending a WIDA Workforce Housing Committee. I don't need to talk much about it, but they have a specific workforce housing committee because it has been such a big question mark. So I've been attending those meetings and trying to learn what I can about it
Sure.
for when we discuss it, you know, in case we decide to move forward with something.
All right, thank you. Table Rock.
Okay, so I had a meeting with the port attorney and I had a to-do list, I'd been talking to Michelle about a to-do list, try to get things done. So I have good news and bad news from the attorney. The good news is that we do not have to open the comp plan to sell this land. We read through it and when we wrote it last time, the way we wrote the wording was that lots U and V would be available for development. And because these lots were part of an industrial development, it was in the 80s when we bought the property, but it is a platted development. It's called Rock Hill Tracks 2. They're platted development. She said that if you read the RCW, it is about industrial districts. She said that fits, that it's an industrial district. There is no reason that the intent of that writing cannot be that we would want to sell this property to a business that had a plan that fits where is her wording? Finds it in the best interest of their constituents to sell a lot. Okay, so that's the good news. The bad news is the RCW says the port shall have 2 appraisals. So we did the one back in June. And Table Rock meets is, the initials wrong on this, is we're gonna pay half. We've invoiced Michelle and she's gonna pay half. But we have to have another one. So I'm trying to work that out with Kim. The wording also says real estate broker. So I'm trying to work out with her if we can see if there's a real estate agent that could provide the second appraisal, because our first one was a certified appraiser.
Right.
So, but it says shall, so we have no choice. We have to do it. I called Associated Appraisers today. They cannot do it before January, but maybe could do it by our public hearing, maybe. I don't know. So that's gonna be an issue and I'm working on it. I mean, I've already contacted 2 realtors and an appraiser today. So I just met with Kim yesterday, so there's no feet dragging on this. So the port attorney outlined the process for me. We have to compile a packet to present to the public prior to the public hearing. That packet has to have a resolution describing the historic development of these tracts. We have to prove that there's nothing encumbering the lots, which we don't have any debt on it. That's pretty easy. That the lots are ready for development, and that the commission finds it in the best interest of their constituents to sell the lots and the type of sale method desired. We have to have the 2 appraisals as part of the packet, the plans and specifications that Michelle has submitted, and any other pertinent information. We have to have advertised for the public hearing prior to holding it, and we have to have the packet ready for the public to view when we advertise. And then we can hold the public hearing. And after the public hearing, within 3 days, which you could do it right after the hearing, but within 3 days, you have to decide whether or not you're gonna sell the parcels. And then after you make that decision, which is through this resolution, you would be signing a resolution. There is a 20-day appeal period required by RCW that the public can appeal the project. And then at the end of the 20 days, then we could complete a purchase and sale agreement. And Kim said basically the packet we put together for it would be the purchase and sale agreement. Everything would have been determined at that point. If we're putting any covenants on it, if there's any encumbrances, it would be determined in that process. And then the sale could be completed after that 20-day appeal period. So based on all of the things that have to be done, my goal is to have the public hearing at our January 11th Port Commission meeting, which then with the 20-day appeal period would put February 1st as the closing date. And I don't know how to get it done any faster. I honestly don't. If you would like to have Kim come and talk to you directly, that is fine with me. I understand that.
This packet that we have to have put together prior to the public hearing, we have everything from Table Rock that we need for that. So
Yes.
it's just waiting on us to assemble all the ingredients to this and have it
Yes.
ready for viewing.
Yes.
At the public hearing.
Yeah, we have to have,
Except for the appraisal, another appraisal.
we have to have another appraisal and we have to verify, which I think is gonna be easy, but we have to verify the property description, verify the property corners. but I think there's, what do you call them?
And
Pins. I think there's pins
yeah,
out there.
There really should be.
Yeah, yeah.
That should be
So,
something you do.
But then we also have the two neighboring businesses, which is already an issue. You know, Tima already, their lease expired at the end of this month and they wouldn't sign a lease. They asked to go month to month
Mhm.
because they're concerned about what's happening next door. And then, the public transportation, I was concerned that we had leased them part of lot U, but I got the lease out and we haven't. I didn't get to tell you that, but we haven't. It's only lot T, so we're clear. So,
If anybody can make any claims to this property, I mean. Team-
oh, no,
they're
no,
just-
no claims and we don't owe any money. So, yeah. So, but I also want you to know that I've received 2 calls from the public, very concerned about the project.
Mhm.
And I want to do this. I've been trying to get somebody to do meat processing in Dayton for freaking 10 years. I want this to happen. Just sharing everything with you so you know
Mhm.
that I have received 2 calls from the public concerned because of smell, potential smell. So, you know, it may be, I say I have everything from Table Rock Meats, but it may, Michelle and I have done quite a bit of talking. It could be that we need to, maybe she could provide because she's got a great plan
Mhm.
for how to mitigate, you know, have a fence and how to, you know, try to mitigate the issues. So I think just making sure we have that written up
Right.
might be helpful, yeah, to do before the packet, yeah. And I reached out to Kim today and haven't heard back from her, but I'm asking her a few more questions about making sure we do this right, but
Mhm.
that's, I don't know how to do it any faster.
No, and my concern isn't, Jenny, that it's you personally dragging your feet on it, it's that the port is, you know, as a whole is holding them up, and I don't want us to be the ones that are responsible for delaying them and opening up their business, you know, I know that they have deadlines and it's really nothing against you or the staff for not doing what you're supposed to be doing, it feels like it's against all of us as a whole, as a group. We have somebody that's trying to open a business and wants to get going and hire employees and get going, and the community can use it and it's a benefit for all. And here we are as a government agency putting the brakes on everything because they have to follow all these rules and regulations. And I get that there's rules and regulations that we have to follow. I just want to make sure that, you know, if there's things that we can be doing along the way, like getting this packet ready, that we can be, you know, have these things happening, you know, snap, as much as possible for, you know, the people that are trying to buy this and, you know, bring business and jobs to the area. And I'm not saying that we're not doing that. I just want to make sure that as we go along through this process, that we're making this happen as quickly, as efficiently as possible for them. Michelle, I don't know what kind of timeframes you have on this and when you are planning to be open and when the grant money and all that requirements are.
Grant money, I think has to be done within a year of being given, which was a couple months ago.
Right.
So I think that's my biggest time frame is that grant, and I can't move forward with the grant money until the building's actually completed.
Yeah.
So, because otherwise, if the building's not completed in time and I take the grant money for the equipment, then they can come back and say I was faulty on the grant and make me repay all of it.
Right.
So I don't want to do that. I want to make sure the building's up and running and done.
Mhm.
And I don't, you know, I'm in the middle of, banks and contractors and, you know, making the buildings and the concrete and making sure everything's here and on a timely fashion and when can they be here and, so just trying to coordinate a whole bunch of different things to evolve around the grant also and make sure it's completed without losing it, because that's $200,000 worth of, you know, rail systems and equipment and everything that can go in, but, you know, ordering the building, if it's got to get here and then where does it
Right.
go? And if it's not, you know,
Is it prefab?
we're getting a steel building,
Okay.
and we're gonna try to go out of, I kept thinking Pomeroy. Coleman still, yeah, and, so we can have hanging, we can have all of our weight hanging from it.
How long do you anticipate, if you have a ballpark from the time you break ground, if things go semi-normal?
Mhm.
How long do you have a ballpark on how long? 6 months, 3 months, 90 days,
It's been 3 months.
3 months?
Yeah.
That would be best case scenario, probably.
That, yeah, if everything continues to flow like I'm trying, and that's why I keep talking to Jenny and I come across rude, I don't mean to, I'm trying to coordinate so many different things. But the drain systems and the, you know, the blood's gotta go one place and it can't coagulate and it can't this and then the, you know, the chemicals have to go another place. And so the drains are huge, the rail system's huge. The building's the easy part.
Yeah,
The-
it always is.
Yeah, the coolers, making sure that the animals can't get completely out, so I think a perimeter fence is probably a must. And, you know, so all of that, it's coordinating everybody to come in all at once. And the bank is so willing to work with me, and he's like, okay, when are we starting, I'm like, well, I don't know now. And then Coleman's like, okay, you know, prices are gonna change, but we can't get the building and then not have he's not gonna hold it, and then, so it's just kind of, you know,
Yeah.
hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
But nervous because, if everybody can do it right now in 3 months, are they still gonna be able to do it?
Yeah.
So then, you know, then that anxiety starts hitting on, okay, but is it all gonna work together and fall together as planned, or is it gonna just kind of completely, you know, self-destruct and become a problem that is, you know, just really hard?
I'm sure it'll work out just like we want it to.
Right.
Yes.
So trying to, you know, I'm trying to get, different containers, like right now we have a container down there that's the freezer for holding beef.
Mhm.
And so we're gonna get different ones of those. And, but it, you know, it all comes down, it's all timing, it's all gotta be timed together. And we're starting a nonprofit to try to feed homeless because of the USDA. And so it just kind of there's a lot of inner working things working together.
So with a potential closing, you know, around the beginning of February, that's being, you know, about 90 days out from now, how is that going to affect you in the process of where you're at? Is that going to work with your timeline, or is that going to?
It's gonna have to, you know, of course, like Coleman's like, well, I've got time now.
Mhm.
Everybody's got time now because it's the
Mhm.
off season.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I hope doesn't happen is like, gets closer to like March, April, then I'm gonna start losing everybody on being able to help.
Mhm.
But, you know, the sooner we can get in there, the better, because, and the other thing is, you know, our guys are, and I'm sorry, our guys are out killing in the cold. And, you know, come winter, it just becomes more dangerous.
Mhm.
So I was hoping to have something up before winter hit, but, again,
Mhm.
you know, and then it's like, well, for the safety of the guys, I put something on my place, and then that's just a waste of money and a time and, you know, the drain and, so it's just a lot of.
Yeah.
What ifs, and trying to keep the guys safe is one of my biggest things, and I really wanted to, not have them out. Like last winter well, we had a different custom kill guy, but this year we have our own, and, you know, because we're doing this plant, our truck is not the best, so we're just kind of limping through it. So we don't put a whole bunch of money into that, and then have this facility come up. But, so just, you know, it's just a lot of, different avenues for me to go, but, closing, you said beginning of February?
Yeah, and I don't, you know, if there was some great appraisal god that came along and we got this done, we can do it sooner.
Mhm.
I'm trying to be realistic because I want her to have,
Right.
that's why this is all here, is to
Right.
try to give her what she needs.
The second appraisal, does it have to be a certified appraisal?
Well, that's what I'm trying to work out with
Right.
Kim, but I think it has to, the RCW has specific words. It's either a real estate broker or a certified appraiser, which we already have one.
Mhm.
That's why I'm looking at the broker way, but it's a
Mhm.
matter of who can do it fastest,
Mhm.
really. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I've made calls. I'm looking, yeah. But it's still, there's still a lot to put together. And I feel like there's no reason in my mind that Michelle shouldn't be continuing to plan, correct?
I don't anticipate
Right.
that we're going a different
I mean,
direction.
I understand there might be concern in the community about, you know, odors and whatnot, but I also believe that Michelle is taking, you know, appropriate actions to mitigate that and,
Well, anybody can go to the current shop and smell all they want.
right, you know, and we are
That's
a
a
farming
huge thing for me.
community and farming communities have farming smells, you know, so that has to be kind of taken into consideration as well.
Yeah, but
And,
the last thing I want is any smell, or even us. Because if there's a smell in the area, it's gonna be in the meat, and everything we wanna do is prime.
Right.
Prime meat, prime animals, I'm raising Wagyu for prime.
Mhm.
So the smell is not even an acceptable thing to us. If there's a smell, it's because our freezer went down.
Right.
For the gut room.
Mhm.
Everything goes frozen, and again, if I'm offending anybody, we try to keep all of that, happy for the public,
Yeah.
not, it's something we don't really talk about, just because not everybody likes to know where their meat comes from.
Mhm.
But, no, all of the innards go into the freezer, it gets frozen, and then it gets hauled off. I think that, I would love to be able to use all the byproducts, which is gonna be down the road. The blood can be used as fertilizer, but the coagulant in the blood, and what do you mix with it to get it not coagulate? But the freezers are huge for us to keep the smell down. You use bleach and then vinegar alternating, but, the drains are gonna be nice and go straight into the freezer, which goes straight into a truck and then gets shipped off, but it will be kept frozen,
Mhm.
which keeps the smell
Right.
down until it's completely out of here to a different area. And so it's just, cleanliness is huge.
Mhm.
So, and then having the animals there, they'll stay overnight and then be processed the next day because it lets the animals calm. And I was telling Jenny, I want to get the guardrails to completely basically enclose the corral area that the animals are gonna be dropped off in. It'll help it, keep the weather out for them, keep the sound down, prevent them from getting out. I don't want any, because I would like to try to process bison for Vancini. And I don't want any of those running down Main Street. So we'll put up a huge corral area that contains those, and then we'll have a perimeter fence, so they have to get out of a couple different areas.
Mhm.
But,
That's great. No, I really don't see there's gonna be any reason that they can't continue planning and moving forward. Obviously, we can't start construction.
yeah, and that's everybody's biggest thing is time, win, and I get it every day from everybody different, so I just kind of.
But that's why I did this.
Yep,
I did this.
yeah,
And I want to also remind everyone that, when this first started, it was gonna be a lease, because this was months ago. That's why I did the appraisal back in June. We thought it would be a lease to own, and then it changed to own.
Mhm.
yeah.
So that also, that changed our processes, or,
Because
yeah, it changed it. Yeah, I'd already met with the attorney. We'd already talked about the lease, and so we had to, hey, forget that.
Because it
Come back.
has to be,
Yeah.
what is it that the building has to be,
Collateral,
no.
didn't it? Isn't that what
you
it
have
was?
to pay prevailing wage. For anything that you build on the government land, and, we're farmers and we wanna cut as much as we
Mhm,
can,
right.
so we'll have it. According to my end of it, with the route we're going, we have to have a general contractor. And then after that, we can do a lot of the work on our own, and it's how we can financially afford it. I can't afford a $2 million building.
Right.
With prevailing wage and everything else. So once I found out it had to be prevailing wage, that's when it changed directions.
Who told you that? Where'd you hear that one from? Your grant agent?
No, you told me.
Oh, if we built it
You said if you carried the contract, I would have to use prevailing
for the
wage.
building, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So,
Oh, you meant we would, yeah, I thought you meant if you lease, I thought we were gonna lease the bare land to you and you were gonna build the building.
yeah, you told me that if you carried the lease and we built the building, we would have to use prevailing wage.
Because it's being built on.
Oh, yeah.
On government ground. So that's when it changed, was when I was told that, because you guys, because the government would technically own it, so then it would have to be prevailing wage.
Mhm.
Yeah, you wanna avoid that if you can.
I know, so that's when everything changed to the purchase versus the lease, actually, really good, yes.
Mhm.
Because it would have been great to have you guys carry the contract for a while, but it just would have, cost us a lot more.
Right.
Because we have a lot of equipment, we have a lot of very talented friends that,
Mhm.
like to hunt. And so we'll cut wages as much as we can, and do a lot of the work, which,
Mhm.
we do, that's what we do.
Yeah.
Well, someday when this is a prospering business, you'll look back at this and go, look at the work it took to get there. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right, thank you, Michelle.
Yes, and I'm sorry I come in,
No.
and I left them in the middle. So I'm very sorry.
Oh, Kelly, oh, wait, do we have Kelly? Oh, yeah, Kelly will be thrilled in the morning. No,
Yes, and I scooted over.
no, I'm Michelle, I'm
You're
teasing
fine.
you. Think about all the dirty boots that come in this building all day long. This is an industrial park.
My daughter took the cow trailer home, so that's
Yeah.
why. I
No
kept hearing
worries.
she was unloading.
No worries.
I think we live here for the same reason, so I think we're.
Good.
Okay, so we can open up comments. I believe there was one person who had indicated on Zoom who was interested in providing additional comments. Hand raised.
No,
There is a hand.
is there someone who wants to make comment online? Oh,
Can you hear me? Sorry,
yes.
my phone was being silly. I'm curious about the railroad, the possibility of selling the railroad. Is that common practice for buyer or seller to get it appraised or assessed? I don't know.
Do you guys want me to answer?
Please.
And I can answer for what's historically been done, not answering for you. Historically, we've split it 50-50.
Okay,
With if someone comes and asks us about buying an asset, we have split it with them 50-50.
okay. And does the port generally get property assessed just because, or do they wait for a buyer?
Historically, we have not assessed property ever unless it was requested, and I have a whole shelf of appraisals back here from the past where people wanted to buy stuff, you get it appraised, they see the price, they don't buy it.
Okay.
So, no, historically, we have not done it unless we've been asked.
Okay. And just one last question. In the workings of a port, is it common for a small town port to offload assets?
I don't know if I can say common. I would say that ports have different philosophies, and a lot of it depends on how much property is available. You know, if you're a
Mhm.
Port of Seattle, it's a lot different than the Port of Columbia.
Yeah.
But it is definitely something that it's required that the sale, other than the surplus property we were talking about, the small stuff, it has to be considered in the best interest of the constituents, and that's why you have the comp plan process. I mean, it's not supposed to be easy because it's the public's asset. It's not
Right.
supposed to be easy to just make a decision. We're done with the Rock Hill Industrial Park, just get rid of it. It's not supposed to be easy. Yeah.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments from the gallery or from the Zoom?
So if you said there was a chance that we could get everything wrapped up sooner. How would you go about getting the public meeting then sooner? Do you have to have it?
We'd have to have a special meeting, and that's another one of my concerns is that the stuff that Kim was quoting to me yesterday said that the public hearing had to be held at a regular port meeting. It almost made it sound like it could not be a special meeting. So the only way it could be sooner is if I misunderstood her for some reason, we got the appraisal done, we could decide to do it December 31st, you know what I mean? And we called a special meeting. So I don't want to get your hopes up.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to
Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
the situation, like
Mhm.
you, because you said there's a chance it could be done sooner, but how would that?
If we could hold a special meeting, somebody would have to say, yes, I can do the appraisal for you by December 1st. And then we could advertise in time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'd have the packet done, we could there's all these dates that have to line up. That's why I didn't want you to get your hopes up, but if
Yeah.
it happened,
Or
Then
we
you-
could possibly, if somebody's out there available to appraise it sooner
Yeah.
or later, then we could.
yes.
Have the,
Don't know if we
hearing.
could get it by December, maybe, the
Right.
December meeting is like the 14th, so it's later in the month.
Yeah.
It is later in the month.
I didn't know if you had to like have a meeting before that, or you could just
That's
say.
not really what it is. It's more the advertising, and I could email them and say, can we set a special meeting?
Mhm.
It does, yeah. So if it was done sooner, or I could email them and say we have it all together. But it has to be advertised for a certain
Right.
number of
Yeah,
days
yeah.
and all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so I just I was just-
Yeah,
Just because you made that comment, then I was like, well,
but I don't want you to get your hopes up. I'd rather you
Mhm.
believe that this is gonna be the
I think it would
timeline.
require- it
Yeah.
would Take a very expeditious appraisal to make that happen.
yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
the appraisal probably has the biggest
yeah,
impact
for
on
sure.
speeding it up.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's why I called the real estate brokers, thinking, I just don't know what they're all doing, but thinking maybe there'd be somebody out there that
Yeah,
had the capability of doing it and had the time. I just don't know. I mean, I don't know if any of you tried to get a house appraised over the last few years. It would be like, I mean, sometimes you'd wait 6 months, but you know, things are different, so I don't know. Well,
yeah.
So.
and it has to be a commercial appraiser, which there are very few of. There's one in Walla Walla, one in Spokane.
Is this gonna be an additional cost to Michelle, or are we going to?
Well, I don't know. That's why I'm gonna find out what it, yeah, I mean, that's what it's supposed to be. We're supposed to split it, right? Yeah, but that's why I was hoping maybe it could not be as expensive.
Right.
If it's not a certified appraisal, maybe it doesn't have to be as expensive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we found out there was two, we had two
Had to-
new,
Yeah, said the
Um,
RCW, yeah. Oh,
on the blank here.
The attorney.
Yeah, the attorney.
Yeah.
Kim.
Yeah.
Said, oh, you gotta have two. That's
Yes.
when we knew we had two.
yes, because she said, Jenny, the RCW says 2 appraisals. Are you trying to just get away with having one? And I said, yes. And she said, I said, does it really matter? She's like, yes, it says shall. So she said it matters.
No, yeah. shall-
I mean, it's not like I was trying to do something else illegal. I just seemed like an appraisal was good enough, but she said the word, and I have it underlined on my sheet. The word is shall.
Like I said, make it hard.
Okay, any other items that come before the board? Yes,
I heard Michelle say that she was concerned about her guys having to do the killing in the winter. And so I wondered if the port had any facilities that could help her now to get those guys out of the winter while she's waiting on the building. I remember saying something about there was a building or space at Blue Mountain Station that was available.
It's,
Zoning.
well,
Part of it.
it's not just zoning, but
Messy.
it's
all-
messy.
Right.
And
collecting all the fluids. and
it can be
such.
extremely dangerous, destructive. I'm not sure, you know, the animals can really do a lot of damage if you're not careful, and so just going into any building would be rather hard, because, and then the drain system, you know, you just really need to dig and containments, vats, and, yeah,
Right, okay.
and freezers. So it's hard, but thank you very much, yeah. I thought about it, and I've thought about, you know, even barns, or it just starts evolving into. We just need to be patient.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, no further. Okay.
Well,
I just have one comment. This is my anniversary. The November of last year was my first meeting as a ports commissioner. Obviously, I have learned so much about the port and its projects through Jenny's direction and through training. And I know we have much more to learn. Obviously, we're going to be going through some training on the comp plan and such. So I believe we 3 can all benefit from additional training that would make us more knowledgeable commissioners.
Mhm.
So having said that, I believe all 3 of us commissioners could benefit from some training on how to properly evaluate our port executive director. I'm going to be seeking some outside sources to provide us with that much needed training, and whether it's going to be in person or handouts, but I feel we could benefit from that training.
Okay.
And with that,
Can I, one thing I forgot, the annual port, end of the year annual port meeting, not us, the WPPA, sorry, is in December. Does anybody plan to attend? It's in Tacoma.
you know.
Anybody plan to attend?
no,
I don't think so.
Okay. That's the one where they're, you know, they have the trustees meeting and all that stuff. So if you don't think you want to go, if you want to think about it, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Let me think about it.
You think about it, let me know and I'll probably try to go. I have a sister that lives there, so I could actually, it doesn't cost the port as much. I go stay with my sister and go at least participate in, I could go maybe fly over and stay one night or whatever and do the trustee thing, so, okay. Then the last thing is, I just want to say, please give me grace. I don't know if you've noticed this agenda, but our port has a bucket load of stuff we're doing right now, so
All right.
bear with us, okay?
Be on vacation anyway.
Thank you for all you. do.
Yeah, and now I regret it.
The thing was, I think there, was it the end of the year that they hold elections for
I think it's usually January.
January.
Yeah.
January?
Next meeting, I'll have a meeting scheduled for next year for you to consider. You're supposed to adopt a meeting schedule every year and, but I think it's January, but I can't remember if it's odd or even years. I'll have to look it up. It's in that policy. Yeah,
because we-
I can't
we
remember
started
which year it
January,
is.
right?
Yes,
And you were already the
November.
chair,
this is my, yes, because there was no.
We had no chair.
You had no
so
chair.
that's why they had a special
Yeah.
election in December.
It was just,
Going
yeah,
into it.
because we didn't have a chair because Earl passed away.
Copy.
Yeah.
And the other individuals did not make through the.
Right,
election process.
exactly. There, and I actually talked that over with the port attorney too, and it was like, no, you have to have an officer. You cannot exist without an officer, so.
I've been educated.
All right,
Right.
it's 7:25 and I call the meeting adjourned.
Second.
Thank you. Yes, we're going on.
Get everybody know.
I just think it would be nice if someone bought Woody's, and so I guess I just want to encourage conversation. But yeah, I would love to buy it.
I looked at it last year.
Yeah.
Oh,
I ran a successful food truck for a number of years and loved doing that. So I guess yeah, if God had it in his cards, I would do it again, but I'm not so sure I want a dilapidated building that I called down around me.
It's pretty.
I think it'll-
It has so much potential.